Now, I know on our page or reviews or channel, what have you, that we try different things. Do reviews on shows that we grew up on, movies as well, new releases of movies and shows based either on stuff that we liked or maybe they were influenced by comic books, other comic books, or video games, what have you. We even do now, once in a while, we do our tasting.
Yeah.
I thought that we could add another
Another
in the
review
sense,
type.
but it's not a review, but a talk. We know people in the industry one way or another. Either they're behind the camera or in front of it. They have experience. They lived a life as an entertainer, as a writer, a producer, an extra. They were crew.
Hmm.
I was one of those people. I worked in front of the camera. A couple of times I was behind the camera for certain things, but I gave it up. So my friends have continued with it. So I say, no, let's talk to these guys. Let's get into
Yeah.
their head a little bit and not just interview them, but we'll have a conversation. Because some of these people I have not seen in years, if not decades. And it was a great way for me to take the opportunity also to catch up.
Yeah. I mean,
You know?
what hell of a way to mend lost bridges and catch up with people than say, hey, you mind if I interview?
Well, I mean, that's what I did. I said, hey, do you mind doing an interview for our channel that we're doing? Is it okay? And the people I've asked so far said yes. And on our first in what do you call it? Inauguration?
Inaugural, breakout, uh, premiere, beta, prototype.
I think inaugural is the word. Well, we had the opportunity, the great opportunity, the
Yeah.
lucky opportunity to interview, talk with Berto Colon.
Hmm.
He's been into so many projects of late. We know him. We've seen him in The Tick, The Penguin. He's also just finished, or you just seen him on The Night Agent season 2. He's coming out with 2 movies, which he talks about. And we've worked together on 2 video games, so that's how I know him from. And there's other things that we talk about in our interview that he forgot or that I forgot. And we'll talk about that. You're more like a fly on the wall. Like our normal reviews, I take up most of the time, like I'm doing now.
True, but like I was a fly on the wall because you have history, and so
Mhm.
like I could see the two of you catching up and whatnot. Hey, who am I to interrupt that? Secondly, it was to me it was fascinating to hear the stories that were naturally coming up between the two of you.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely, yeah. Also, I forgot to mention, he's also like his popularity grew from Power Book 2,
Hmm.
Ghost, and also he was in Orange is the New Black. But he's like been getting steady and steady improving, getting more,
More recognition.
more recognition, knocking down those walls. And as I mentioned in the interview, I am so proud of him.
Hmm.
We were not close, but we had mad respect for each other. I did anyway. I had mad respect for him. And I think he had mad respect for me too.
It seemed like it.
Yeah. This interview, it went by so quick. It
Oh
went by
yeah,
so quick. So that being said, we're going to put this in 2 parts.
I think that's the best way to do it.
We're not at Joe Rogan level. So we're going to break it down into two
We're gonna sit
parts.
here for 5 hours to talk.
So coming up is a part 1 of our interview with Berto Colon. Enjoy. Welcome, Berto Colon, to our program. You are our first guest on this show. We usually do
Look at that.
interviews on stuff that we grew up on, and we greatly appreciate it. We known each other from New York way before 2013. We've worked together, as I mentioned in the intro, 2 video games. We did Red Dead Redemption and Max Payne 3,
Max Payne 3.
right? That's
Yeah. I did Grand Theft and I did a couple others, but I remember we did a lot of
Yo,
mocap
yeah.
together. We were in suits together
Oh,
for
yeah. We had
that
the
went on
one
for a
piece suit with
while.
the balls all over us.
Yeah, yeah, man. That motion capture. Well, I mean, that's come a long way from 2013, 2012. But yeah, Dave, that's where that's when it was kind of, I guess it was blowing up because at that time, Grand Theft 4, I think had been
Yes.
the biggest video game ever at that time. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like off the chains with numbers and how many people played it and how many were sold, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's grown quite a bit since then. The technology, I'm sure, is a lot different now, but yeah, man, those were the early days of that motion capture.
Yeah, I remember when we meet each other at auditions, and we would just reminisce really quick because you'll be coming like in, I'll be going out of the audition, and we just like
Yeah,
talk. We did Max Payne for a long time. That was a fun gig.
we were on that for a while. And it went on for and then it kind of kept going. We had a guy in there. I don't know if God, the name will come to me. Brian something. and he kept calling us back.
Yeah.
Rockstar Games. So
Yes. And
once
then, but
we
unfortunately,
did
he
one,
left. Yeah.
yeah, he
But
left, and then
you did part two. Is that right? You
I
did part two.
stayed, and I went on with Rod. I think his name was Rod, and then the Sir Wellen was the last name. He left, and then Rod, the director, stayed on for a couple other games, and I think I did one or two more, and then that was it. But
Hmm.
it was steady work for a little while, right? I mean, we, like you said, we
Yeah.
were kind of seeing each other. The usual suspects at all these calls. We walk in and out. We'd be passing each other like in and out of the auditions when we had in person auditions, because rarely do we
Hmm.
have those anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it's like you become familiar with people. You become friends. You're all trying to reach the dream, or reach your goals in the business, in the industry, and you have that in common. And so, you build bridges with a lot of people that you see all the time. And you were one of those
Hmm.
usual suspects for me. And of
Yeah.
course, it was always like a win when you get to actually, when you have a gig and you're with someone that you've seen already for like the
Right.
last 9 months, 10 months, a year, whatever. Oh, we're in this together now. So it's, those little rewards that you get when you're in this world, when you get to work
Hmm.
like this.
That's awesome. The last video game, if I'm correct, according to IMDb, was Gotham Knights.
So yeah, that was mostly voices. So I didn't do any mocap for that.
I'm sorry. How
Red
was that
Wing.
experience?
So that experience was mostly voiceover work.
Hmm.
We did voiceover work back then too, but we also had a lot of that motion caption
Yeah.
stuff.
Hmm.
I actually have a video of us jumping. I don't know if you remember us jumping off the. They had set up like this, the stage that they set up with the tubes and whatnot.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah. Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
set this thing like 6 feet, and we
Yeah.
came running down the steps off to the end of this stage that was built inside of this warehouse, and then we
Yeah.
jumped off of that and we landed in some pads or whatever. But
Yeah.
the experience with these latest games was essentially just in the booth, a lot of
Hmm.
voiceover, a lot of reaction, and all the dialogue.
Hmm.
And it's done in house, and you do multiple voices, unless you're like the feature characters or the feature, there's 5 or 6 or whatever they have feature characters. Well, you will be involved in doing, but it's changed a lot. The mocap is done in general, like, right, they just have like these movements that they capture, and so I guess they can
Right.
recycle those. They might go into recreating the expressions of like the main characters with the actual actor that's going to be voicing that character, but then it's mostly booth work. At one point, I guess you sort of graduate from that and you move into more, if that's what you're doing. You want to
Hmm.
get into. I always wanted to do features and I wanted to do TV, and it was a means to an end. But at the time, you're freshly out and trying to get your feet in the water, so to speak, with this world. And
Right.
voiceovers it's a commercial booking, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's handled by the commercial agency. My experience was good. I'm happy. I think I got what I needed out of it, and then it was time to move. But I mean, I'm open. I'm open to work. Right?
Would you go back if you were offered?
I mean, I definitely, if I was featured, that's something that I would consider. But other than that, I think I'll keep it what it is, and I'm grateful. But I'm in a different place now for sure.
Awesome. Now, I kind of find it funny that you've been working. That's awesome, but is like you had an appearance on Gotham. You had an
Yeah,
appearance on the Penguin. You were
yeah,
on the Tick. You had
yeah.
a stint on Gotham Knights. Were you a comic book fan growing up?
I got into those heavy metal comics. I'll be honest, man. I was never into the
Wow.
traditional, but when heavy metal came out, I was a big magazine kid. Dirt bike magazine, all the car magazines. Like, I mean, the
Hmm.
getting $3 together from paper routes and whatnot, and saving money to go and get whatever magazines, Muscle and Fitness. Like, I was just a big
Yeah.
magazine kid.
Right.
And I stumbled upon the heavy metal comics. They were so advanced because it wasn't like the cartoon stuff. This was like dreamy, kind of like almost realistic, digital, if you will. And I went crazy with those. I think I had maybe 24 volumes or whatever it was. I guess over a period of like 2 years while they were out, I remember seeing one of them was with the opponent type of character. And
Hmm. Hmm.
I may have one or two saved around somewhere, but yeah, that was the extent of my comic experience. I never got into like the baseball cards or like the comic world or like the Batmans or the universe, DC universe or any of those, unfortunately. My brothers, I think my youngest brother got into the collections, collecting them and whatnot. But I never got into it. I mean, the movies were, the original Batman was the original Spider-Man. Those were my go-to experiences with that world. And you know what? I before the Penguin, when I read for that role, Blondie Castillo is actually a character inside of that world. He does live in that world, but he's more of a Catwoman. He's a go-between the Falcons, but he was really a liaison, if you will.
He was like a go-between?
Yeah, he was very, very, a few bits of view. I just found, like, I just Googled the name and I actually found a few references to some of the stuff that he was doing. And he does live in that world of Catwoman. Now, Reeves and the writers, LaFranc Lauren, they have the creative freedom to do whatever they want with these characters. So I think that at least the names and at least the idea that they're in that world, they could be interchanged and they can be moved around like sort of like little pieces in a game. But I did go as far as researching that, and it was interesting. I think I would have enjoyed it. I'm probably going to enjoy it now. I'm just not that big of a fan, unfortunately. No. I see you're an avid collector back there.
You think so?
Definitely, both of you guys. I mean,
wow, we cover pretty much most genres there.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm. It's always been interesting for me. I've always loved it. I just have a short attention span. I have trouble getting through scripts and things like that. Right, but I do have an appreciation for that world and the fascination that it creates with people. And I'm a fan. I'm a fan. Right. I'm not an avid fan like you guys.
Have you watched the heavy metal movies?
I vaguely have that in my memory somewhere. I would have to jog my memory, but I do, for some reason, the first thing that came to mind was that I was a little disappointed with seeing some of them.
Oh.
But I don't know how many have there been. I mean, I wouldn't know.
I want to say there's two. So there was definitely like the first one that came out in 1981. And
look at that! Wow.
I think there was another one that came out in 2000. But the first one was more like an anthology where it was a bunch of short stories.
There were still cartoons, right?
Yeah, both of them were actually cartoons, but one was like more of a full-on animated movie, where the other one was short stories all put together. And I think John Candy was like the voice of one of the characters. It had like a bunch of people. Yeah. Okay.
Wow. It's coming back to me now. It is coming back to me now. I do remember sexual content and something about one of the...
Oh, yeah. It was definitely not for kids.
Oh, yeah. No.
It was not for kids.
No.
Yeah. Hence why I was definitely drawn to it. And when I went in to buy the magazines and was supposed to buy Dirt Bike magazine or Muscle and Fitness, instead I walked out with one of those, and I don't even think my mom knew what I was buying, so it's crazy. But now you're jogging my memory. Now I seem to remember at the very least that first one that left an impression on me, because it was very it was sexual. It was very sexual in nature.
Right. It was, for being a cartoon, it takes you back because you're not expecting that. And as a kid, like, oh my God, and then you're like almost like you're watching Skinamax in the sense, like, you're not supposed to, but you're seeing it as a cartoon, and
you're definitely watching. It's like watching a dirty movie. Yeah. It's like watching a little bit of cartoon porn.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Not porn. I shouldn't say porn, but there's just the content. I guess you don't expect cartoons at the time to have that kind of detail. But
yeah. Where are we finding you today?
So I'm actually living in Jersey. When we met, I was still living in New York. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. Then I came to New York when I was 14, 15. So from 8th grade basically on, I've been out here in New York. But now, my transition after college was, I went back to the Bronx after I graduated. I went to Fordham University and I graduated, and I was renting in my mom's. My mom had a 2-family home in the Bronx.
Okay.
And that same house that I grew up on, I ended up moving with my brothers into the downstairs apartment, the 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom. And I think I was there for close to 5 years before I was dating my then girlfriend, who's now my wife. And we ended up getting a place together in 2005 in Jersey City.
I'm sorry, where in Jersey City?
So right in the Heights.
Jersey City. Where?
Yeah, right in the Heights. In 2005, I was living in Jersey City Heights, across the street from Pershing Field on Central Avenue. And lived subsequently in those 5 years, 6 years, we lived on Manhattan Avenue, which is the other street that faces Pershing Field, Central. And then we were on, there was, I always forget the other street, but 3 or 4 blocks up Griffith, all Jersey City, all in the Heights. I rented for 5 years there, and then we ended up finding a house. We were introduced to this area of Middletown, big ferry here, that fast ferry,
nice.
that commuter ferry, and it was a big attraction for us because, of course, at the time, we were traveling into the city, especially my wife. I just wanted her to have a safe commute. And so that's what brought us to this area of Middletown. And we've been here since. 2 kids later,
Yeah, you have 2 daughters, right?
It's been great. 2 daughters, 16 and 15. A lot of fun.
Jeez. I remember seeing them one time in one of their auditions.
Yeah, no, dude, I used to put them on the back of a bike. I used to put them in those little carriers, the little Huffy or not Huffy or whatever they made. I think I bought one of the last Trek. I bought one of those last Trek, like little spoons or bubbles, whatever. And it was a 2-seater. And you could attach it to the back, right on the hub of the bike. And yeah, man, they've been trekking with me. I'm raising them the same way I was raised. Just high activity, a lot of action, a lot of movement, a lot of exploration. I would take that bike with that trolley in the ferry. They would come with me. I'd have lunch prepared. I'd go do my readings, do whatever I need to do in the day, bike around the city, grab lunch, come back, jump on the ferry, and come back.
Wow. Nice.
Looking back on it now, it's like, oh my God. It's crazy the things that you do. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. They were really little. They were really little.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that their memories of that is just their dad kind of literally being the truck, if you will. Like I'm just pulling them. They're just in their seats looking at me, But yeah, I do. I'm really close with them. They've been part of my process. They are as much a staple in my career as anything else, So all the ups and downs, they're included, and they've seen it. They've seen a lot, but all positive stuff.
Right.
These are the things that you do. Right? I mean, there's no excuses. It's you got to get stuff done. You get called, and the irony of that is that they hardly saw me all throughout those years too, because I got to see them during the day, but I was always gone at night because I was bartending and working nights for almost 15 years.
Do you remember one time I showed up at one of your bars?
Oh, dude, I vividly remember. I mean, I just
it was a bad.
It was part of the thing. It was part of the it was part of the thing that everyone knew that I was bartending somewhere. That's DL or Avalon or somewhere.
Right.
I was always somewhere in the city, and I saw a lot of people. I purposely invited a lot of people, but then there were the happy accidents too. People that you would always run into.
So Ivan, we went one time, and I was on a date.
Okay.
I was on a date. We went there. This motherfucker dated her too.
Wait.
Who's that?
Wait. Yes. Oh, not at the same time. It was not at the same time. Not at the same time. Gorgeous. He was already established, had his kids, all that stuff. So it was like a long time ago that they dated.
It was way before. Yeah.
Way before.
Wow.
I can't remember.
Right now, I'm gonna look that up and maybe I'll remember the name during this. But that's funny. Yeah. That's funny. Wow.
No, yeah. And then she's like, "Why don't you give me a kiss in front of us?" He was like, "Fuck no!"
So she recognized that he was there and wanted to make a show.
Right? Yeah, no. Like I said, let's go see Berto. Kind of like a reunion kind of thing, and he and I friends. But then she tried to be like, she whispered in his ear, and he backed up like, "What?" And he came with fuck no.
I won't mention names, but I think we'll have a side. Let's side chat. It's coming to mind. I think I know what you're talking about.
Right.
Wow.
She was gorgeous. she was fine, but that was rude of her. And
sounds like a very bonkers person. And I think I know exactly. Now you're jogging my memory. Holy shit, dude.
That was just funny. I was just like, wow, like small world.
Dude, it's crazy that we've had this history because it's a small world, and for some reason the city just creates that, right? Like it's just like I think we all have like that. We gravitate towards those same orbits, right? Like I mean, if we're friends and now. We just always going to have people that are going to intersect in those gravities and in those orbits, and the business,
right,
and the nightlife, which is, I think nightlife is just for everyone. I think if you're a city kid or if you live anywhere in the city, I don't know what it's like now, and I don't, and I did this the same, but my God, man, it was like Friday and Saturday nights were legendary. It was like everybody was heading into the city, and if you didn't end up at a club, you were definitely at a bar or you were at some kind of social environment, interacting with people. Whereas now, I don't know what these kids do. I don't even know if they go to clubs anymore. I don't think there's any dancing or anything like that.
Definitely things have changed
a ton.
Multiple, yes. Yeah. I mean, I can't I'm sorry. It's like, I I'm with my girl. When we're first dating, we go out dancing. Is at the point now. It's Friday. Can we just stay home? It's Saturday. Can we stay home
Yeah,
again?
yeah. No, it's we're older, so
Yeah.
that's a normal process. But in those years, when you're 20, man, it was like we out all the time. I mean, I was sneaking into clubs when I was 17.
Angel, you didn't do
Wasn't
that?
even 18.
Well,
Yes, I'm sure he
In
did.
Jersey, Alan, in Jersey, it was 18 to party, 21 to drink. So yeah, I
21
was
to
going
drink.
to clubs, but I wasn't drinking.
You weren't drinking.
I was dancing, meeting girls, blah blah blah. Shit. Before I moved down here, I was going out, partying and stuff like
Right.
that.
You were
and
doing
I
it
was
when
in
you were
20.
here.
Yeah.
But 2013, Alan. I'm talking about 2013 when I left New York.
Yeah.
Not when I was visiting Tampa. No, I know that.
Yeah, I'm a very happy and grateful person for those formative years in New York City because I feel like we were part of this last class of just members of this group that, those years we'll never see again. And I actually worked at the Limelight, which was called Avalon at the time. That job basically kept me employed for all the other years.
A few moments later.
This is what happens when you live with 16-year-olds in the house. But anyway, that job kept me employed because, you build a reputation for being able to be fast and high volume. And so that gig of working at that place just opened the doors for me for everything else. Those days are long gone now. Damn. Beautiful, wonderful years.
Oh, they were great. I mean, I go back with my girl. We visit maybe once, maybe twice a year. I get excited when I get there. When we go, I love to walk. And she'll walk, but then she gets tired. Like one time we were there for a weekend. We came back. She fell asleep on the flight home, woke up to get into the cab to go home. And when we got home, she asleep and woke up the next day. Because I just love walking. And New York that's what's great about New York among many things. There's so much to see and do and eat.
Yeah. If you don't grow up there, I don't think people are exposed to that kind of that approach to just getting on a subway. I actually just got back from Atlanta, and it was weird because my daughter had a competition, and I have never heard, but part of the planning around where the venue was located, which was essentially the center there of Atlanta, where you have the State Farm where the Hawks play, and then you have across the way you have the Falcons, and then you have these venues which are like kind of like convention halls but massive, and the competitions for gymnastics and basketball, AAU. They have tournaments for volleyball and kids. And, in this particular case was her cheer, but we were actually commuting almost like 40 minutes because there was no hotels near here. This was a major comp for cheer. So all the hotels that were like right in that center hub area were all kind of booked. So we ended up staying I guess it was maybe 6 miles from the venue. It was like 5 or 6 stops on they call it the MARTA, MARTA. But it was sort of part of the whole weekend. And I've never seen that before. In Jersey, like you either stay in Atlantic City or if you go to Pennsylvania, you stay somewhere near there. But to actually have the subway be part of like the commute back and forth every day. And she had to be there like as early as 7:30 to watch some of the other teams inside of the gym, the same gymnasium that they all work out of, and then go back and rest because she was one of the older girls, so she didn't compete till night. But it's a lot like New York. The trains are the same. That lifestyle that includes all that walking up and down those stairs, even if you have escalators, you're still getting tired. They're still sleeping. It's Thursday. Yeah. They're still recovering. They had shin splints and their calf muscles were hurting. I'm like, well, you guys, they've never been exposed to it. So you got to kind of be patient with people that didn't grow up like this. You got to give them a little break.
Does any of the girls have interest in following daddy's footsteps?
My oldest is training. My oldest is doing the training, but she also does basketball. She gets a little, basketball is very intense for her. But she is studying with a Actors Playground. They're in Freehold, New Jersey, but they also do classes in Red Bank. They use the Count Basie Theater. That place is sort of a big complex now, and they've sort of expanded to like other offices around that hub in Red Bank. And so yeah, she's taking some classes there. She loves it. Nice. She's really good. The teacher raves about her, and I've been able to benefit somewhat from that as well because I do all my self tapes with them. It's sort of included in the tuition. Can you believe that?
That's awesome.
It's like been struggling for years to find somebody to read, and forget about trying to read one of them. It's never been. reading with a spouse or a brother or a kid is, I imagine some people can do it, but I mean, for me, hasn't worked out that well. Ralph Colombino is his name. He actually trained in New York, and I think he studied with Sandy, with Meisner, but he's old school, man. I love the way he teaches. I love his process, and it's kids. It's for kids. There are no adults in the school. But he extends the courtesy for me and any family member that ever wants to, if any family member wants you pay tuition, the self-taping is included. Because the kids obviously get auditions as well. So it's worked out really well. It's worked out really well, and I'm happy for it. Explore everything, do it all. That's kind of like my motto here. I want them to do as many things as possible. But we'll see, because this world is, I definitely don't gaslight a lot about what this is about. I'm very realistic with her about the process. This is a long process that takes someone. I remember when I was starting out, I was told very early on, you're probably going to sacrifice not only relationships, but you're going to probably spend 10 years, 15 years working on yourself without seeing any work at all. And that's unimaginable for most people. That idea that you're just going to be doing something and not being able to, but you gotta stay in it. That's the key to all the success, is just always staying in it and just not giving up.
You're a prime example of that, buddy. You're a prime example, because you started in 2005, correct?
So essentially what happened in 2005, I ended up booking this Grosh commercial, which was, I guess it was like maybe non-union or union. And the point was that there was a buyout. The other three people that were in the commercial with me were CESD clients. I had no agent. I had nothing. In order to streamline the payment process, the casting person basically said, hey, go talk to these guys at Cunningham and CESD and see what happens. Because if we can get you on board there, then it's just easier. And I ended up going.
So wait a minute. So you're with CSD too?
Yeah.
Mora?
Yeah. Mora went to college.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, I'm serious. Like Mora went to Fordham. Mora.
Oh my God! Because she is one of my representatives too.
Yeah. So
holy shit!
I walk in there and she's there, and then Lakey was the one who signed me. But I work with her and Kirsten. I still work with them.
Yes.
There, but Kirsten and Mora are my go-to people.
Oh my God! Next time you talk to them, please tell them I said hi.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
Oh my God!
You should send them a copy of this.
Hysterical.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
hysterical.
Send them a copy of this. Oh my God,
that's crazy.
Awesome. That's funny.
Yeah.
So you booked with them, and then you're saying you did voiceover for.
At least IMDb has you doing voiceover for the Warriors.
Oh yes, right, the Warriors too.
It was that job that kind of got me on board. I think I got my SAG card shortly thereafter, but then I ended up I guess I got the SAG card first, because then I booked a regional voiceover. I went in there, and Tom Celia, who is on the voiceover department, he's like, hey, man, maybe we should give you a couple of, I guess they tested me or something. I forget what it was. And I think Lakey even mentioned, hey, we should try and start sending you off for some voiceovers as well. And I'm bilingual. So, of course, the bulk of it in the beginning was Spanish. And I ended up booking a Taco Cabana spot in English and in Spanish, which is a regional chain, I guess, in Florida or down south.
Yeah.
It's like a Pollo Tropical or one of those, Taco Cabanas. It's just like a taco maker, essentially. You don't see them a lot anymore up here, but it's a regional chain. The rest is history, man. We kept climbing the ladder from that. But that's what got me in. That was the first few jobs.
Now, I couldn't see on IMDb, but didn't you do a project with Rosalind Sanchez?
That was more recently. That was, I guess that was 2020, just around right before the pandemic. I was actually working. I was actually working for Kettle One. I was brand ambassador essentially in New Jersey for like 4 years. After bartending, I sort of parlayed that bartending career into an industry in the liquor business, which was paying off great dividends. It was it's such a great industry. And for someone like me who's active, going out there, you're basically in control of your schedule, you're in control of your sales, you're in charge, you're tasked with just building the brand in some of the best venues and restaurants, on-premise restaurants in New York. And so it was fun, and I love the brand. I've been a Kettle One fan forever. And this thing with Rosalind happened. It was a very, Rosalind and I have crossed paths so many times. We have mutual acquaintances, mutual friends in Puerto Rico that sort of advocate for us there. Whenever we're on the island, we have sort of like the same PR person and same friends and producers and friends that we have in common. And they've always like, I know, we'd love to see you guys work together. And I'm like, yeah, she's legendary. Like I would always wanted to work with her. And so I think we were on vacation. I was on a family vacation, and something happened with this project because it was her directorial debut, and she also wrote and first time writing, first time directing a short. And she did an amazing job, man. She got a great team of people. We connected with some producers from Catalyst Studios, and who I'm still working with to this day. I actually just did 2 films with them in the last 2 years with the same studio, with the same company, and so a lot of things came from that project. But it was a beautiful project. It was about the Maria. It just things that happened around the hurricane. The story is about, satos, which are the stray dogs in Puerto Rico. We have this sanctuary that these animals lived in. And essentially, I am one of 3 families represented in the film. Rosalind and I are parents or a couple who struggles with fertility. Then you have a gay couple and one of the partners is dying. And then the other family is a single mom raising a daughter. And the woman who runs the shelter or the sanctuary is sort of like a grandmother aunt figure to them. And it's just like this little in and out, kind of like this encapsulated time in their lives where Maria is happening, the shelter gets hit, these dogs are affected, but conversely, all these families are affected because they all have something to do with the animals that are being sheltered, and those lives were affected by the storm as well. So it was a beautiful piece. I mean, it won a lot of awards. It did really. I mean, it's actually been in circulation in Puerto Rico twice on the channels there, and I think it's on Amazon right now. So. Great first outing.
What's the name of the short?
For all of us.
It's Satos.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah.
Because I remember coming across it. I think you were wearing a tan suit. You were yelling at Rosalind, the character. Yeah. And I think you were like out in an outdoor garage.
Yeah, we were at the top of a garage there and near Plaza near the airport in San Juan. But yeah, it was the top level, and basically it was that was the scene where it was a bitter moment in their lives because they just could not conceive. They kept trying and trying and trying, and so that was the struggle that they had.
I was like, damn. I'm not bilingual, nor is Adan. So I was like, awesome.
Yeah.
Can't watch it. So unfortunately,
we were supposed to shoot. Damn. We were supposed to, little secret, little story about that shoot. We were supposed to do everything in both languages. So that was one of the sort of like the I guess we were aspiring to go and do each scene, get the take we wanted in one, and then go back and do it again in English. And it was hard, man. It was hard. And I'm bilingual, I'm fluent in both, but the idea of it's sort of like, cause it's a perspective also changes with the language a little bit. I learned a lot on this set, man. It was really, really cool. So we just ended up doing it in our first language for all of us, and it worked out fine. That's awesome. Like you said, the intention is clear. And that's the important part.
Yeah. Now, talk about inspiration. What got you into the art? What you got into acting? Did you see a movie or show?
I mean, I grew up with movies. I grew up watching movies. They all had. I sort of came of age watching All the Right Moves, Willow, and Scarface, Escape from New York, Platoon. I think I grew up in an era when HBO was starting, and we had all these changes that were happening in cable TV, like MTV, and
we literally just had that conversation about HBO starting last week.
So how could you not? And I mean, for some people, it was just what it was. Going to the theater was always. It's always fun for my generation. But then when this happened at home, you just had like this freedom. And then even Blockbuster, right? Like, I mean, this was the thing that you would go and get movies on the weekend, It was a big part of growing up, coming of age and discovering things and understanding life and, maturing and so to speak, and learning about the birds and the bees and learning about everything in sports. And so it always had a big effect on me. And I just gravitated towards it. And then I played sports. It's what got me everything in my life, I think. My big dream when I was in Puerto Rico still was to come here and play football, and I got that done. My mom had left to pursue a better life for herself. She had already been working in Puerto Rico for a couple of years in the VA system. And, it's still the federal government down there as well. So she was able to get a job here, get established here. And I just kind of followed her. But really, it was the idea that if I got into high school here, that I would have a better shot at going to college here as well. Plenty of kids, not plenty, but some kids did get recruited. And the big dream for a lot of kids in Puerto Rico is to go study abroad. And this is the study abroad program for us. Like, this is, you come to the States, right? It's not, very rarely you ever talked about, oh, I'm going to study abroad in Mexico. No, you want to go study afuera. I want to go study in New York or study in Florida or a university in the United States. That was the goal for most. And I just felt like being in high school out here would have given me a better shot at that. And that's kind of like, that was what propelled me. That was the main idea of coming out here, and having mom here was obviously it was very comfortable because at least I had, a home. I had a house. So I had a means. And so once sports were done for me, I'd suffered some injuries in college and in high school. But once that, that dream of the NFL started to kind of fade away a little bit, and the realistic and maturing, understanding the odds and the numbers. This is my biggest regret. I got invited to a combines and I never went. I don't know why. I can't tell you to this day why. I guess I just felt like it was a waste of time. But you know what? I should have gone, because that's not me. Like, I think about that, and that's the one thing I regret. But anyway, once all those realities kind of set in, I tried. I went out in the working world and I tried a few places. I think I was with New York Life for like a year and a half. And then I found this venture capitalist company that I went to work for a little while, and also in the business of insurance. And there were things that I was trying to do that I just wasn't, I just didn't have my heart in any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't want to like work behind the desk or push a pencil. Not that there was anything wrong with that. It wasn't for me. And I said, I think I have something that's kind of pulling me towards this. I was a hyper kid. I did some plays when I was very little. It was always in the back of my mind. I had a little bit of an entertainer in me, even as a high schooler. I remember just certain moments in my life where people were, and I played volleyball, I played other sports, and there was just, that attention that you get when you're on the court, when you're on the field. There's a sense of being seen. There's a sense of this sort of like, this is like a little bit of an opera going on here. There's the competition going on, but then there's an audience as well. That whole world for me was something that, for me, translated very well to this. And I think those are all the factors that kind of went into me making the decision to go through with this. And I knew I had to study. And, being in New York City, I bartended essentially because I wanted to have my days free so that I can pursue this. It was great money. And being able to work in nightlife is really good money. I was able to have a good apartment. I was able to do things. I, started supporting a family basically on that job while I was still pursuing what we were pursuing during the day. Yeah. Right. So that's how this all started to kind of take shape, because the journeys, they're so different. Right. There's no book. There's no, it's not like you can just go out and take an LSAT and then you take the bar and then you go do an internship or do a fellowship, whatever you do, and you work for a couple of years at a law firm and then you get a job. There's no real pattern like that. There's no path really or steps that are set, and it's a lot of trials and tribulations, but that enriches all of us as performers. I think that struggle, that time, those formative years, trying to make it, trying to do this work.
Right. I loved it, and the auditioning was fun and stuff like that. And when I got a gig here and there, it was great. But for me, I guess it's like we all have our limits.
Yeah.
In one way or another, some take forever, in a sense, longer, and as anything in the field, in a business like this, you gotta stay with it. With me, I was getting fed up a little bit here and there. Like that. And understandably so, but there were some great opportunities there as well, which I slept on, because my martial arts background, and had opportunities to do some stunt work here and there or meet some people or what have you. And I was like, nah, I'm gonna stay home, or I gotta work instead of getting it covered. I was thinking about rent instead of thinking of opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's like that. But but it's hard. It's a hustle.
It's a hard hustle. It is. And
a lot of no's.
It's basically no's. It's basically, you got to be masochist. You got to be somebody who just, it's like you're self-sabotaging yourself at times. But there's this deeper belief in there. And like I said, we all have our limits, you know, and
Yeah. And you've proven to be limitless, which is awesome.
well, thank you. I mean, I just think, you know, sometimes we have these personality traits that are either a curse or a blessing for some of us, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, to be candid, if I put my mind in something, I have a very difficult time, for better or for worse, right? It's
Mhm.
not always
Mhm.
positive, to be honest. But it's sort of like it becomes an obsession, and it could be a problem. You know,
Yeah.
it could get in the way of things, because there is a time to walk away. Something my wife always says to me is like, you know, you got to pick and choose your battles, and sometimes I don't.
Mhm.
I fight every single one,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you know, at this point in my life, I really shouldn't be doing that. But I'm grateful because, you know, I've had the experience to kind of learn that there's a lot more positive than there is negative. You just have to deal with these negative aspects of these personality traits that you have, whether it's obsessiveness, whether it's ADHD, whatever it is, attention, whatever it is. You got to kind of try to maneuver or try to cope and make sure that you are kind of going in the direction that is mostly positive as much as possible, right? Like, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to get into things that are not good and possibly not even healthy, but you have to find the way to kind of navigate through that, because it's a byproduct of who you are.
Yeah.
It's just a byproduct, and it's inevitable at times. And so you try to find the best path, the best outlook, and the best way to get to where you're trying to go. And you carry with you these things, you know, these frailties that we all have. So, but it's proven. I'd rather have this than have like a lack of intention, or effort is something that is in my lexicon, because from the moment I wake up, I'm about working, and I have to put effort into things, you know. So it's
Mhm.
worked out well.
Yeah.
Yes, it has.
I would say so.
Have you trained at all at, I'm not sure it's still around, TVI Studios?
So my training was interesting. I know about TVI. I actually applied to a bunch of schools. I applied to Shriver. I applied at Stella Adler's. I applied at HB Studios. Never went to
HB
TVI.
Studios.
And then what ended up happening with me is that I got caught in this pretty interesting deal with Actors Connection, and then a couple of other. It was Actors Connection, and there was Actors something else, and Actors Alliance. And so you'd have an opportunity to go on audition and read for casting people and agents there.
Mhm.
And at the time, it proved to work out really well for me, because I ended up meeting people from Hardin and Curtis, and I was freelancing with a few different agencies at a time. You know, when I started to get work, I got my agents through these Actors Connection type of places, like these outlets, where you can go and read, and you pay for a
Mhm.
fee for a class, and at the end of the
Mhm.
class you read for them, and then hopefully they'll invite you and they'll sign you, or freelance, whatever. I did that for years. I
Mhm.
freelanced for years. I
Mhm.
actually started working on TV, working on soaps, and working on daytime TV, and sitcoms and whatnot. And I started to do some of those, the regular shows, right? But I was only freelancing, and it was
Mhm.
from going to these places. You know,
Oh,
my
nice.
agents all were freelance agents that I had met. And so, yeah, the study process for me with regards to that was different, because I ended up studying with Robert Patterson, who was, I think at the time, one of the only living teachers in New York City who had actually studied with Sandy. Like, he was one of the
Mm.
last students. And he actually was Ted Danson's
Mhm.
coach, Joe Beth Williams' coach, Sonia Manzano.
Mhm.
He had a stable of really great actors, people, working actors who were like names in the industry. But Robert was a fucking son of a bitch, man. Like, I mean, we never finished the class. I studied with him for 4 years. The class would start out with 7 or 8, and it'll dwindle down to 3 people. Laura Gomez, who was with me in Orange is the New Black, and we met there.
Mhm.
She and I, along with 2 other guys that I forget their names now, but we would try this out every year. We would try to see if these classes would survive, and they would just crumble, dude. I mean, at the end of it, it was like 3 people. Laura was the only girl. And so when we
Mhm.
got to some of the books and some of the classical works, like um, American and English and all these other works that needed time,
Yeah.
you know, Laura was basically doing scenes with 2 different partners, you know, and it was taxing. We never finished the class. But
Wow.
he taught us how to really incorporate this idea of, you know, living in the moment and being truthful. The whole idea of, you know, acting without acting at all. It's just like living in this space of honesty and truth, and living from moment to moment and letting things go where they may go, even if it was an accident. This idea, like, that was really unique. And I never really sat down with people to talk about the way we, but it was, I don't think it was very common what he was teaching.
It wasn't like an improv kind of situation. It's more like immersive or
immersive Meisner technique, Stanislavski. It was like the old traditional way of teaching this work, but he really just found the way to make it, to really teach it. I owe him a lot. I owe him everything. Basically he kind of broke me down and built me back up, because there were a lot of things with me, my instrument, things that I needed to kind of improve on. And he kind of taught me to let go of all that vanity and all this nonsense and all this idea with acting and wanting to serve some kind of purpose for yourself, because maybe you had like some trauma of your childhood. And, a lot of people think that because they have this trauma that they could act. And there were nights where he kept us there till 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, we used to start at 9. My wife honestly thought that I was like having an affair, and that I was being abused, or that this man was mentally breaking me down to the point where I wasn't function with her or as a man. Like, it was really. And then again, that whole idea of not letting things go, right? Like, no, I believe in this. Like, this was really, really deep. But it helped, man. It helped, because the way that I approach my work now, I think has a solid base. And I feel like I break text down well. I can analyze what's happening in a scene. And I'd really kind of just, make simplicities out of complexities, and not the other way around, is what he used to say to us.
Gotcha.
Before I left to Florida, I started going to acting. I said, I'm going to take it serious. At the time I'm leaving, I can't remember his name, but he was one of the actors from Saturday Night Fever, and he was, was a teacher. But I felt the training that I went through the best I felt in the way of therapy.
Yeah.
Self-reflection.
Yeah.
Like, I will break down and cry, because he'll have us like, what is your saddest memory? And it has a lot of time to do with my brother, because I was a bad brother. I was not a good brother. So self-reflect, and I'll cry, and this is that like relationships too. Did you feel like that? You ever have one of those moments?
Yeah. So one of the beautiful things about the way he taught that is that, you cannot be a psychopath, because imagine if you had to drain your body and your mind and your emotions anytime you had to. That's called recalling. Right? You want to recall an emotion, or you want to recall how you felt in that particular situation. Because if it applies to the text, you can recall it. But what you don't want to do is fall into the trap of reliving it. You're not reliving it. You're recalling the work so that you can actively do it, be in service of the text, recalling that emotion, recalling that feeling, so that you can reenact and work from that point of view. And if it's applicable, it's applicable, right? And I think the trap sometimes is that you fall into this idea where you're like, no, I'm reliving this, like full-on physiological effects of that. And that's not healthy. That's something that we were taught early on. And in fact, it's the antithesis, is what he used to say. It is the antithesis of this work. Because imagine how draining would that be? Like, 45 performances over the course of, 2 or 3 months. Are you actually reliving the killing of this person in this play? Are you actually reliving the beatdown of this partner that you have in it? No. There is a limit, right? There is a limit. So that is what he taught me, in the sense of it's professionalism too. It's a way to kind of be able to kind of recall those things and effectively reenact and live in that space. But it's the work, and you feel it as almost as if it's, it's in there, it's in your heart, it's in your soul, you're working it, you're feeling it, but you don't relive to the point where the trauma is actually affecting you like it would in real life. It was something that he really was keen on. And he felt that a lot of the problems with young actors was that whole idea, that whole idea of going in there and like almost like smearing yourself, as he used to say, smearing yourself all over this, as if it's really your trauma, your work, your words. This is not. You are in service. Actors are in service of the work. I'm proud of the way he taught us. I think it was very effective. He used to tell us that he never wanted us to mention his name, and he's passed now. But he never even wanted to divulge who he was to anybody. He wasn't interested in commercial. He didn't advertise anywhere. He never put ads on like, what was it, Backstage. He never did any of that. It was word of mouth, and word of mouth was
Wow.
enough because, like I said, no one would survive this fucking class. Like it was impossible. We were doing Odets, or I don't know what we were doing. We were getting to, like I said, it was like, you know, um, Tennessee Williams, and we couldn't finish a cat on a hot tin roof. We could never finish any other works. We could never get to like a final scene of one of these beautiful plays that we would work on for months because somebody would leave. But you know, sticking with it for 3 years, I guess I tried, and I'm grateful because he definitely he taught us a way of working that was very efficient, very good way to work.
See, I kind of like that kind of teaching though. That's like, I'm a masochist or sadist. What's the word? I don't know.
Both apply.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Both
So
apply.
my
You gotta
students
like a little
train.
bit of pain. You gotta like
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit of pain if you're gonna do this kind of work. Thick skin is, you know, that's
Thick skin.
that's entry level.
Right. For me though, I got kind of like I miss it. Like I want to go back to like take classes. Not necessarily I get work, but that therapy
Yeah,
through the acting lessons.
the exercise. It's the
The
exercise.
exercises were just like so like, you know, can you open something else inside of you that you never
Yes.
recognized before? It's just like sometimes you leave drained, like you just ran like a marathon,
Yeah,
and it's a mental, emotional drain.
yeah. But it was
That
a
was so
relief
great.
too. It was a very
Yeah.
nice. It was a relief. It was.
Mhm.
I know what you mean exactly. I know exactly what you mean.
All right. So as I mentioned, we're going to break it down in two parts. This was the end of part one. Coming up will be part two, obviously.
So kind of like when we say next time will be the next time.
It will definitely be the next time.